I find it ridiculous. And by the way, and I've said this on my podcast, I'll say this on your radio show, he laughs at these people. So, Mr. Rutte, if that's how you pronounce his name, I mean, he's trying to embarrass you, sir. Okay, he put that text out to embarrass you. He's literally sitting on Air Force One laughing about you.
So as we speak, Anthony, we are waiting for Pete Hegseth, who's due to talk at about 1 o'clock our time. Now, this is supposed to, I imagine, reassure everyone who had any doubts about that American strike on Iran. What do you think he's going to say?
Well, I mean, listen, first of all, we're all readers of Shakespeare. Doubt does protest too much. So if the strike was successful, we've had presidents that the phrase was speak softly and carry a big stick, but these guys are overcompensating for something. And so it would just make everybody in the international community, the journalists, wonder why are they being so bombastic about it? If the strike was successful, it was successful, and let's move on. Let's hope that we don't have an escalation because I think that would be bad for the world and bad for the United States.
Some people point to Hegseth as being the least qualified member of a pretty underwhelming Trump cabinet. What do you think?
Sorry, you mean to imply that doing push-ups with the troops doesn't make you qualified to be the defense secretary? Is that what you're saying, Jay?
Yeah, I think I am. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, obviously, look, I mean, listen, I know Pete a long time. I work with him at Fox News. I have nothing against Pete. When they were slurring him about his drinking and they said he was drunk in my restaurant, he was not. So I told the truth about that. But he is very unqualified for that job. It's a technical job. It requires getting through a lot of bureaucracy. It also requires being tough on our defense contractors. It's not just a recruiting job. But remember, the president is casting these people more than he's trying to select the right people for their qualifications. And so he likes the looks of Pete Hegseth. He likes his body fat composition, and he sees him on TV, and he likes his television appearances. But I will say this, because you know this as a journalist, when he's speaking, when Secretary Hegseth is speaking, he looks like he's out of his league. He's out of his depth. You can see a lack of confidence in what he's saying. Even his hand movements and the way he's gesticulating indicates that. So yeah, no, he's unqualified for that, and everybody knows that, and Trump probably knows that, but he doesn't care because he likes the looks of them.
The NATO summit was notable, and we don't want to get too obsessed with this daddy thing. It's terrible. It's diabolical to many people's ears. Is it just simply necessary? This is the way grown people, grown men like Mark Rutte have got to play Donald Trump.
Well, listen, I completely disagree. Prime Minister Carney doesn't play Donald Trump like that. The president's into, for some reason, humiliation rituals. For some reason, he's decided that it makes him more of an alpha male if he can get people that have a power position inferior to his to, bow down to him, cow down to him, be obsequious with him. And I find it ridiculous. And by the way, and I've said this on my podcast, I'll say this on your radio show, he laughs at these people. So, Mr. Rutte, if that's how you pronounce his name, I mean, he's trying to embarrass you, sir. Okay, he put that text out to embarrass you. He's literally sitting on Air Force One laughing about you. And so you're there telling your friends, well, I need to do this and I need to kowtow to him. Actually, you don't. Now listen, the president does have a point, though, and let's be fair to the president. We have to increase our defense expenditures as an alliance. I think our generals want that. I think your generals, frankly, want that. And so I don't like the way the president went about it. General Petraeus calls it the angry man theory. I don't think that reflects well on the United States to go about it the way the president is going about it. But we do need those defense levels to be increased. And so hopefully that mission is accomplished, but it doesn't have to be accomplished with the daddy thing, which is absolutely revolting. And it's demeaning of the people in those positions, and knock it off. Call Mark Carney, and Mark Carney will teach you how to deal with a bully, and just knock it off.
The fact is, though, that many of these Western leaders, like our own Sir Keir Starmer, who've made this defence spending pledge, have got a hell of a job at home convincing the electorate of, and also finding the money to go about it. I mean, the government here is facing all kinds of questions about its welfare bill. They're trying to cut their welfare budget. This defence spending thing is going to turn into quite the challenge for so many members of NATO. What do they do about it?
Well, it's very hard for me to, intervene and opine on the UK internal politics or even the European situation. I guess I would just say this, as somebody that's observed this thing for a long time. We have existential threats. The free world needs to stick together. There's 5.7 billion people living under some level of authoritarianism, and we have to be prepared to defend ourselves, and we can't be caught off guard. And so I think that's got to be a resonating message. Good leadership from Prime Minister Starmer or other leaders in Europe is to guide the electorate to that. There are certain leaders that are thermostats where they just display the heat that's in the room from their electorate, and there's others that are thermometers where they're trying to get you down to where they're going. They have to set the course coordinates, if you will, and guide the people to the right decision. And listen, you just read the front page of the London Times. You'll get a sense for what the existential threats are. You don't have to read the Prime Minister's daily brief or the presidential daily brief to know the threats that we're under. And if you want a world peaceful for the free world, we're going to have to do these things. And I think it's a priori, and he has to explain that to the people in the United Kingdom.
So let's talk positive about Donald Trump and about the way his behaviour actually could well have a positive impact on the way the world works. Some people don't like his style. Yep, we take that. But what if in 5 years from now, Iran is a different country? Maybe it even has given up its idea of destroying Israel. That isn't beyond the possibility that lies before us, is it?
It's not, and we can give the credit to the president for aiding that, but I would say that there's an inevitability to that anyway. The regime has a 20% approval rating. The theocracy is dying. They've underserved their people. The sanctions that have been applied to the theocracy have crippled them. I think they overplayed their hand with the Hamas proxy war. October 7th probably went deeper into Israel than even the Iranians thought that they were going to get. More damage was done to the Israelis, more casualties, and a result of which the counterstrike that the Israelis have put on over the last 2 years, while not surprising to people like me, I think it caught a lot of people in Iran and other places off guard. And I think that there's a story here where that regime could fall. We don't know where the supreme leader is. The last 7 days, he's absent. If that regime falls, the real question is what happens? Unfortunately, when regimes have changed in the past in the Middle East over the last 20 years, hasn't been a great outcome for the West. We fought 20 years in Afghanistan for regime change, and we went from the Taliban to the Taliban. Blood and treasure lost in Afghanistan, no real meaningful change in regime. If anything, things got worse for us. So we have to be careful with these things, which is one of the reasons why I was against the strikes. But if you're telling me that they're going to work, I'm happy to say that I'm wrong about that. But I usually would like to go with diplomacy first. And the regime feels weak. Even Vladimir Putin, who's a friend of theirs, recognizes that there could be changes there. And you see he's been fairly quiet about these strikes.
Well, he's not said anything, has he?
No, no, exactly. But he has said one thing. He said that there are 2 million Russian-speaking either expats or citizens of the state of Israel. And so he's mindful of Israel's security issues because he feels that there's a lot of Russians in Israel. And so he's mindful of that. And again, I believe in Israel's right to exist. We can debate about what they're doing in Gaza. There's things about that. I understand why there's repercussions, negative repercussions against them for some of those things. But again, I'm also somebody that saw the IDF 45-minute video, and I shared that video with a lot of executives in New York and a lot of college administrators. People need to understand the level of animalistic violence that they faced on October 7th, and they do have a right to defend themselves. So
Mm.
what's at issue now? Are these proxies from Iran being annihilated, and are we going to subdue that regime? And I think the answer to that is yes. And if Donald Trump has been a part of that, then he deserves credit for it. But again, I would prefer a different style because we're still the big kid on the block, especially as it relates to the military. And I think when you come across with the bellicosity of a bully, I think it hurts America's standing in the world and it makes people trust us less. And so, why do we need that? Uh, let,
The the
let's
whole the whole
let's lean on
MAGA,
benevolence. Let's
yeah,
leave on benevolent leadership as opposed to bullying.
MAGA doesn't like foreign wars, doesn't want forever wars, but here we are. Is there a split in the movement, or are most fully signed up MAGA members prepared to go with whatever their idol Donald Trump does?
So I think it's the latter. I think there was some discussion before the bombs dropped. The president said something that people should really listen to. They said, "Well, what are the policies of MAGA?" And the president responded, "Whatever I want them to be." And so that's a full-on personality cult. They may disagree, but they've been subdued. They'll disagree either quietly now, or they'll fall in line with him. But this portends a very interesting future for the Republican Party because there's nobody else in the Republican Party that can galvanize that group. The president is the most famous person in the world other than the Pope. He's on the world stage as a political figure the last 10 years, and he casts a very big shadow in the Republican Party. It's his party now. He decapitated the traditional Republicans and installed his MAGA leadership. But the real issue will be, particularly after the midterms, which are only 18 months away, the real issue is going to be who's going to run, who's going to lead that party. And the short answer is there's nobody in that party that has his cult of personality. And so I think that there will be a civil war in that party, and it'll be interesting to see what the outcome is there. But listen, I mean, I know people think he's invincible, but he is 79 years old. He is a lame duck president in the United States, and he is a decaying political asset. By November of 2026, those Republicans that really dislike him are going to start turning on him because he won't have the political gravity after those midterms.
Yeah, you mentioned his age, and I think you thought, I listen regularly to the rest is Politics US, and you did think that his reason for leaving the G7, you hinted that it might be related to some kind of health issue.
Well, he doesn't look well. I mean, look, I know the guy a long time. He's walking with a limp. He's stumbling over a lot of his words. He looked better during the G7 meetings. He looked better at those press conferences. I mean, he was dropping papers when he was talking there with Prime Minister Starmer. He was talking about doing a deal with the EU, when in fact he was doing a deal with the UK. And those are either signs of old age or there's signs of a health issue going on. And I think it's important because what we learned in the Biden administration, we ignored it or we took the spin of their staff. When the president showed up, President Biden showed up at the 80th anniversary of the Normandy invasion last June, and he was wandering about. We said, oh, they're just that's AI and all this sort of stuff, and he's sharp as a tack and all this stuff, but he wasn't. So I think it's important that we hold President Trump to the same standard of evaluation.
Yeah. What he doesn't need is trouble in the Middle East. And if he can sort this out, he can turn to what he really wants to focus on, which is what?
Listen, I mean, he has a flawed economic strategy. He would like other nations to subdue to him. He wants to put these tariffs in place, which the Federal Reserve Chairman Powell is trying to explain to people in Senate testimony this week how inflationary and how damaging that would be to the U.S. and global economy. He's putting forth a spending bill that's going to add $3.1 trillion of deficit spending to the United States over the next 10 years. And we are already over our skis in terms of deficit spending, in terms of the percentage of what we're spending relative to our GDP. So, I would like him as a member of the rational opposition. I would like to slow him down and I would like to get rational people, whether they're CEOs, judges, senators, congressmen, to work together. The problem is the best thing that Donald Trump has going for him are the Democrats. I mean, they're fighting with each other. There's a huge schism in their party that he's been able to take advantage of. But if you're asking me what his mantra is, he would like to isolate America from the rest of the world. He wants to Brexit the United States from the rest of the world. That will make the country a weaker country. It'll make the country one of less disposable income. And he's doing this for anger-based reasons. He's doing this for the emotional charge that he feels that the Americans have been taken advantage of, which is sort of like taking your soccer ball or your football home from your friends because you don't like the way the game is being played. I think it's nonsensical. I think it's irrational. I think it's very important for people like myself and others in the United States to explain what he's doing, explain the dangers of what he's doing, but also recommend hope for a different strategy, one that's more healing for the world and one that leads to more economic growth and aspirational opportunity for America, particularly the middle and lower income people. The great irony here is that he is not serving the people that voted for him, which speaks to the personality cult that he has around him.
If we are to believe this whole Israel-Iran conflict, it's had real performative elements to it, hasn't it? And while we've all been interested in it and watching it and listening to stuff about it, Gaza continues and Russia and Ukraine are still not at peace, and Putin is still doing what he wants. What concerns you the most?
Well, let's take them. I think we have to take them separately. So I'm actually optimistic about outcomes in the Middle East. I think that some of these countries want to embrace the Abraham Accords. There's reports that even Syria may want to embrace those accords. It would be in their economic interest to do so. Of course, the Saudis were talking about doing that before the October 7 terrorist attack. So I think there's a high likelihood that we get to some type of ceasefire, armistice, if you will, in the Middle East. And I think there'll be I think people are getting tired. I think there'll be some hope there. And again, the president in his first term with the Abraham Accords does deserve credit for that. Jared Kushner and Mike Pompeo deserve credit for that. The other issue that you're referencing, which is the Ukrainian-Russian war, I think there's going to be a problem there because I don't know what it is, but Vladimir Putin has a hold on Donald Trump. And so none of us could figure it out in the first term, still can't figure it out now. When he criticizes Putin, he does it in sort of a light way. He does it in a dry, funny way. He never does anything as it relates to additional sanctions or providing more military aid. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist in security intelligence to know with the right supplies, the Ukrainians can well defend themselves and push back the Russian army. And they've done a real big damage to the Russian army, way more than other people had anticipated. So I would like to see that bloodshed end. But until the president either goes against Vladimir Putin or Vladimir Putin himself capitulates, I think we're going to be in a further stalemate. So I'm more troubled by what's going on in Ukraine right now than the Middle East. And let me just make this last point. I think it's an important one. If Putin capitulates, that will be the end of his term. He wants to go out like Joe Stalin. He wants to die in that seat peacefully. He doesn't want to get ousted from that seat. And I think as a Russian leader, I don't see what option he has for withdrawal there. So it's going to be a long, drawn out battle from here.
Yeah. You're not a fan of J.D. Vance, are you?
Listen, I read his book. He's a very thoughtful person. He wrote that book at a time where he wasn't famous, so he didn't have a ghostwriter. I think he's a knowledgeable guy, but I think that he's a political opportunist like Marco Rubio. I don't even think they believe some of the stuff that they're doing, but their power and ambition, their needs for power and ambition have precluded their execution of their own principles. And so they've morphed a lot. And I think America is probably going to need somebody that has a principle-based attitude towards things, irrespective of what's going on in the moment in politics. And so the first time I met Vice President Vance was at a Mitt Romney event in 2018, where he was calling President Trump Hitler. He said he was America's Hitler. And so he's disavowed that in order for his ambition. I get that because I've been, I got my 11-day PhD in how
Yeah.
Washington works, right? So I know what these people are like. But I'm not worried about Vance because Trump has already put him halfway through the wood chipper, and Vance will have very little of a political future by the end of this term because I just know what happens to these
Yeah,
people.
but
And if you don't believe me, ask Mike Pence. I can give you Mike Pence's cell phone number. Call Mike and ask him what Trump did to him. Trump's going to do the same thing to Vance.
how is Mike Pence, by the way?
Listen, I think Mike Pence is a great guy. He just received the Profiles and Courage Award from the Kennedy Library, recognizing that he went up against the president on the 6th of January. He voted for the procedural application of the Electoral College vote. The president, of course, didn't want him to do that.
Mm.
I mean, I think this is astonishing that we cover this stuff up, but there was an insurrection going on the 6th of January. And Mike Pence said, I'm not having it. I believe in this system. I believe in the Constitution. He's out of the political mainstream now because Trump is still in power. And these guys coded it over. Ted Cruz, life was being threatened. Josh Hawley, life was being threatened. And the congressional police force was defending them on the 6th of January. And we have Trump on tape fomenting that violence. But of course, that indictment has gone away because to the victor goes the spoils in American politics. All of those processes have been dropped. And we've got to deal with President Trump for the next 3.5 years. But let's not forget what he did. And I applaud Mike Pence for his courage to do the right thing for the American people.
Yeah, I mean, back to Trump and his health. Is he going to complete the term, do you think?
Listen, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you one thing about him. He's a willful guy. And, the bad people live a long time. You know that. Only the good die young, Jen. You know that. So, I mean, I think the guy, I don't know, probably he could outlive you and me, which is sort of a scary thought, given our relative youth. I mean, but this guy,
Yeah.
he's a force of nature. So I'm assuming he's going to complete the term.
Yeah, I'm not having him outliving you and me. I'm sorry, I'm just not going to let that
Okay,
happen.
well, I
Just
don't want that to happen either. Trust me. I sort of pray that that doesn't happen, but go ahead.
uh,
I'm
just
sorry.
yeah, just very briefly. When you're in the UK, what is the question you are most frequently asked?
Is he going to run for a third term? I think many people in the UK are paralyzed with fear that we're not going to get rid of this guy or he's going to start canceling elections. And so I don't think that that's going to happen. And it's not because he doesn't have willing sycophants that would let him do something like that. I just think the money in our American political system is going to stop him. There are lobbyists, there are CEOs around America that are paying their lobbyists right now saying, hey, figure out a way to contain Trump, figure out a way to get him to knock it off and go to people on his staff, go to congressmen and senators. And so there's a lots of different types of checks and balances in the United States, not just the court system and the other branches of government, but there is a very strong lobbying influence, very strong money influence, and the money. And again, I'm a Wall Streeter for 36 years. The money is towards a return to some level of normalcy. So I think he's not going to end up even trying something like that. I think it'll be stopped and put to a halt. But that is the number one question I get when I'm in the UK.